Hello and welcome to another Intensive Care Hotline.com and intensivecareathome.com live stream. And welcome to another Ask Me Anything show. And you can ask me anything as it relates to you having a loved one in intensive care. Just type your question into the chat pad, or you can also come on, join me live on the show. If you are clicking the link that I'm posting here now, it's a StreamYard link. So if you want to come on live on the show and you want to talk to me directly here, then I encourage you to come on live to the show and talk to me directly. You don't have to go on camera. You can go on camera. You're more than welcome to, but I know some people are more comfortable with the camera than others. So, okay, so before we start with some questions for today, what makes me qualified to talk about treatment in intensive care and answer questions for families in intensive care? My name is Patrik Hutzel. I'm the founder of intensivecarehotline.com and intensivecareathome.com. I'm a critical care nurse by background. I have been working in critical care for over 20 years in 3 different countries, where I have worked as a nurse unit manager for over 5 years. And I have been consulting and advocating for families in intensive care all over the world for the last 10 years at intensivecarehotline.com, where we build a professional consulting and advocacy service for families in intensive care. Look at our testimonial section, what our clients say. Look at our some of our client videos where we've done podcasts with clients, and I can say without any exaggeration that we have saved lives of patients in intensive care through our consulting and advocacy, where intensive care teams wanted to pull the plug, and we have saved lives through our consulting and advocacy, and that is verified through some podcasts and videos with clients, but also through our testimonial section. Now, I'm also the founder and managing director of Intensive Care at Home. You find more information at intensivecareathome.com. With Intensive Care at Home, we are sending critical care nurses into the home for predominantly long-term ventilated adults and children with tracheostomies, but also for adults and children that are not ventilated, have a tracheostomy, that are ventilated with BiPAP, CPAP, that need home TPN, home IV potassium infusion, home IV magnesium infusion, IV antibiotics, port management, central line management, peak line management, Hickman's line management, as well as palliative care. Okay, also, if you like my videos, subscribe to my YouTube channel for regular updates for families in intensive care and intensive care at home. Click the like button, click the notification bell, share the video with your friends and families, and put your comments in the section. I also want to welcome you if you're watching this on replay. Again, put your comments in the section. I will respond to them or read your questions out in another email or a video. Now, with intensive care, just very quickly, with intensive care at home, we are currently operating all around Australia in all major capital cities, as well as regional and rural areas. We send critical care nurses into the home. We are an NDIS approved service provider, TAC in Victoria, iCare in New South Wales, and IISQ in Queensland, DVA all around the country. We have received funding through public hospitals, private health insurance, as well as departments of health. We are also providing NDIS level 2 and level 3 specialist support coordination, and that's about intensive care at home. What we do there. If you need intensive care at home you are in the US or in the UK, I encourage you to reach out as well. We can help you privately there. Now, let's look at the questions that have come in this week, and I will read some of them out. In the meantime, type your questions into the chat pad or join me live here on the StreamYard, and then I can answer your questions live here. Okay, first question that I'm going to answer for today is, need to zoom in, from Deborah, who says, my daughter has a problem. It looks like the same everything, only my daughter was 23 and didn't have seizures. She was put on DNR as soon as hospital, found out she was an organ donor, and didn't even inform me of the DNR. I had no say because of that. They put guards on her for her organs. She turned her head 3 times to me when I called her name, and they sedated her more. Her freaking heart never stopped till they clamped it off to take it out of her chest for organ donation. I still have nightmares. She could have made it. Never listen to anyone. Just fight for your baby girl. Get a lawyer now. Do not live in the hell I live in every day. Now, this is a comment that Deborah made to a video that I published here on YouTube, where I say hypoxic brain injury after drug overdose and cardiac arrest. ICU wants to pull the plug on our daughter. So this is a comment that Deborah makes to that video. So look, Deborah, you know, I am terribly, terribly sorry of what's happened here. But, you know, the reality is that the biggest challenge for families in intensive care is that they don't know what they don't know. They don't know what to look for. They don't know what questions to ask. They don't know their rights. And they don't know how to manage doctors and nurses in intensive care. And that is another prime example that Deborah had no idea how to manage a territory. Deborah had no idea that you can't afford to get these situations wrong. Look at what happened to Deborah's daughter. She died. 23-year-old girl. You cannot afford to go into these situations blindly. You know, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people going into intensive care every day, tens of hundreds of thousands of families dealing with a loved one in intensive care every day all around the world. And you're going in blindly and you believe everything they're throwing at you. You're not spending the time on getting a second opinion. Give me a break. Give me a break, really. So, you know, you are saying she was on organ donation and they didn't even inform me of the DNR. Well, the question is, Deborah, did you ask questions? Did you just go in blindly? You know, I mean, this is a life or death situation and you're just going in and you're believing everything that people are throwing at you. No, that's not good enough. You know, the families that get the best outcomes here with intensive care hotline in particular are the families that take responsibility for everything that's happening, right? Everything that's happening, you need to take responsibility for. Don't make other people responsible. There is help out there. You just need to run with it, right? And if you're telling me she turned her head 3 times to me when I called her name and they sedated her more, well, now you realize in hindsight, you know, that you've probably made a big mistake, but you've lost your daughter in the process. I cannot imagine, you know, how your heart must be broken. You know, I mean, it is absolutely terrible. You know, of course, you still have nightmares, you know, but, you know, you shouldn't listen to anyone. And you don't even need a lawyer. This is a good thing. I mean, we are not a legal firm. We are clinical consultants and advocates. You know, we are not a legal firm. We have saved many lives without a lawyer. You know, you don't need a lawyer. In some instances, you might need a lawyer, but in most instances, you don't. You just need to start asking the right questions. You know, if you don't ask the right questions, nothing's going to happen. You know, hi, Daniel. Good to see you from Africa. Nice to see you, brother. If you have any questions, please just type them into the chat pad or join me live on the StreamYard here if you have questions. Okay, then another comment here from Jeff, who says, if families look at what Patrik puts out there, never give up hope. I'm a survivor of all the same conditions in ICU. And my parents had gone through everything this person had described. And the hospital and my family never once gave up hope or support on me. I'm eternally grateful for all the love and support I've received from everyone. I won't always return to normal, but you still have remaining years, days, minutes with loved ones. Exactly. Exactly. You know, and then another comment here to my video, hypoxic brain injury after drug overdose and cardiac arrest, ICU wants to pull the plug on our daughter. Another comment here from, who's this, from Sarah, says, don't do it. They told my daughter would never wake up. And yet she did wake up. She knows me, remembers things, but has horrible spasticity. If you have good insurance, you can make it through. Well, good insurance might help, but it's not, the be-all, end-all. What is way more important is that you ask the right questions. Once again, we have helped many families that didn't have the best insurance, and yet, we have helped them through it. We are clinicians first and foremost. We provide you a second opinion, and we can, dissect everything that they're telling you or not telling you, and we dissect medical records. Everything that we do has merit for our families, right? Very simple, very, very simple. Now, also, I want to make a quick comment. Last week, I spoke to a client who had his partner's father in ICU overseas, and actually in Europe. And, the ICU all of a sudden was telling the family, oh, we have to pull the plug on your dad. He was only 65. And, he was progressing well, had a tracheostomy the week before. And all of a sudden, literally overnight, they were saying, oh, he's deteriorated. Let's just, quote unquote, pull the plug, and the family gave in. Even though I said to them, make decisions today that you don't regret in 12 months' time. Now, do you think that a family might regret, quote unquote, pulling the plug on their loved one in 12 months' time? Hell yes. Hell yes. And I'll tell you why. Because we are getting emails, phone calls all the time from families saying, oh, last year I decided to, quote unquote, pull the plug on my dad or my mom or my husband or whatever, my spouse, whatever, sibling. And now I'm having second thoughts. Really? Of course you would. But you bought into all the crap that they've given you in intensive care, saying, oh, well, your loved one, your mom, your dad, your spouse, your sibling won't have any quality of life, and let's just pull the plug. Well, what is quality of life? What is it? I don't have the answer to it. What I do have the answer to is that quality of life is a subjective opinion and a subjective measure. It's not an objective measure, right? It is not an objective measure. It is a subjective measure, and it's up to you, your loved one, and your family to determine what is an acceptable quality of life for you. But the bottom line, once again, is do not make decisions today that you regret in 12 months' time. Does that make sense? Does that make sense that you shouldn't make decisions today that you regret in 12 months' time, especially when it comes to life or death? Doesn't that make sense? Anyway, I hope you get the gist here. Let's move on to the next question, who comes from Bailey, who sends an email and who's in a similar situation. And Bailey saying, I am pressured to pull the plug on my mum in ICU. What should I do? Well, similar to Deborah's situation a minute ago, Deborah deeply regretted pulling the plug. I think that's not putting it in the right context. That's not even giving that justice what Deborah is going through. First of all, why do you respond to pressure? You know, that is your choice. You don't need to respond to pressure. You are not in control of what other people do. You are 100% in control of how you react. You are 100% in control of that. Right? 100% in control you are. Okay. So Bailey, if you are feeling pressure to pull the plug, first of all, change the feeling. You know, you can control your feelings. If you don't believe me, try. Right? At the moment, you're just responding to an external stimuli. Well, you can put that external stimuli back on the intensive care team, that you want everything to be done. Just turn it around. You know, so many families struggle with that. Pretty much everyone is struggling with that. Right? Stop it. Stop it. You know, in no jurisdiction have I encountered that families who oppose to quote unquote pull the plug on their loved one, that they can pull the plug, right? There are some exceptions to that rule, predominantly in the UK, but not in the US, not in Australia, not in other countries. And I am, you know, there is, I have made enough videos about this. I've also covered the topics in the UK in particular in many other videos. So, you know, so don't be pressured, you know, and don't let hospitals fool you that they're operating in a vacuum. So what I mean by that is, you know, hospitals are very good at pretending that they can quote unquote pull the plug, right, without you objecting. That is murder. Think about it. You know, think about the gravity of what we're talking about here. You know, so they can't just quote unquote pull the plug. It's a terrible term to begin with. You know, you should you should change the conversation to, what treatment does my loved one need? That's what you need to change the conversation to. Most families are too scared. You know, they don't know what they don't know. They don't even know that there's help out there. You know, they're running towards the fire, walking into it blindly, with devastating outcomes. Devastating outcomes. Right? You can't afford to get this situation wrong. You just can't. You know. Okay, let's move on to the next question. And if you have any questions, please type them into the chat pad or join me live here on the live stream with the link that I put there, the StreamYard link. Okay, so then there's a follow-on message from Deborah. I just read the message out from Deborah a minute ago about her daughter being 23 and being an organ donor with a DNR against her wishes. And just before I come to Deborah's next question, just with the DNR, once again, no one can issue a DNR for you or for your loved one without your consent. Once again, with the exception of the UK, but I've covered those topics in the UK, right? In other videos. Okay, so no one can force you. There's laws around that. Once again, reach out to us here at intensivecarehotline.com. We can walk you through the process. We can help you step by step. And another tip is, once again, do an advanced care plan. Do an advanced care plan, right? And get help from there. An advanced care plan is a legal document documenting your living will, what you want if you're going into a situation like that. God forbid, if you ever need ICU treatment, you know, if you're ever in a life-threatening situation. Okay, so let's read out the next question from Deborah, who says, "Hi Patrick, how can I have a choice on something I didn't know? I didn't know they put her DNR at the time. As they didn't put it in her record that they gave her fentanyl upon arrival at the hospital. I knew long before her autopsy that she had fentanyl in her system because when we arrived at the hospital, they told us she had no drugs in her system, and I had recently heard about fentanyl. So I specifically asked about fentanyl, and the nurse said she would check. She came back to us and told us she came up positive for fentanyl, and in the same breath she said, I guess we should stop our fentanyl. Yet none of that was in her record. You saw her record. But that was the whole situation that prompted me to get her records, fentanyl. I am angry. I am so angry that you can just check a box at the registry and have your rights taken away. Everything they did was shady, from refusing transport to putting a guard in her room. Signing away your life at the registry is wrong. No one understands how evil these people are, not even an MRI. Deborah, once again, whether they're evil or not, and whilst I agree with you that some of them are evil, you need to take responsibility in a situation like that. You know, even if she had fentanyl outside of hospital, potentially, you know, taking it illegally or whatever the case may be, you know, they would give fentanyl in a hospital. I do understand no one's sitting at home wondering, oh, what should I do if my loved one is going into intensive care next week? I get that, you know. But once you have a loved one in intensive care, you know, this is a typical example, once again, that, you know, you need to take responsibility. You know, you can blame the system. You can do that. And as much as the system needs to change, the first thing you need to change is yourself. There's no way around that, right? And if it wasn't in her record, Deborah, I argue, if it wasn't in her record, I argue the records were incomplete, and I argue they haven't given you the full records. Once again, we can pretty much establish quickly whether records are complete or incomplete, right? Because that's another thing we're finding when we look at medical records. They're often incomplete. Once again, they're only giving you half of the story, right? They're only giving you half of the story, if at all. And that's why you need a second opinion, and you need it in real time, and you need it badly. You know, and also you're saying, I'm so angry that you can just check a box at the registry and have your rights taken away. Let's just say you have done that. Let's just say you've given your rights away. You can still change your mind. You can still change your mind, right? And again, it all comes down to you taking full responsibility. Okay, question here from Leslie, who says, my brother is in a nursing home after an anoxic brain injury in a persistent vegetative state, fully relying on a ventilator, has a PEG tube and a Foley catheter. What is his prognosis for survival? Leslie, I couldn't tell you because I don't know the full history, right? You haven't shared with me how long has he been there, what has led to the anoxic brain injury, how old is he, does he have any other, or is there any other significant pre-medical history? You know, I really don't know. You know, without having more information, you're probably giving me 10% of the information I need to know in order to give, you know, help you and give you an answer here. Would love to help you, but I need more information. Now, let's move on to the next question while I'm waiting for Leslie to give me more. He's 67, been in the nursing home for 5 months, okay? Okay, Leslie has another question. What are they doing with him? Are they stimulating him? Are they getting him out of bed? You know, you are talking about survival rate. He has COPD, sure, okay. What else? Are they mobilizing him? Are they stimulating him? You know, what medications is he on? You know, what led to the anoxic brain injury? Was it a cardiac arrest, for example, or was there something else? Nothing. They said he can't respond, so no physical therapy. Okay, question here, Leslie. So this is not even a chicken and egg question here. You know, I mean, the number of times I'm hearing, oh, we can't mobilize someone because they're not responding, they're not ready for it. Well, here's the thing. How will he respond if no one is stimulating him with mobilization? Right? It's an excuse from them. It's an absolute excuse from them. Okay, so once again, Leslie, you need to take responsibility for what's happening here. You can buy into the narrative there. You can buy into the narrative, and you can, you know, you can believe he's not responding, so no physical therapy. Well, what if they start physical therapy and all of a sudden he is responding because he's getting stimulated? Can you see that, you know, if you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. And I have to credit Wayne Dyer for this, Dr. Wayne Dyer, I should say. You know, so you need to change your approach. You can blame the system all day long, but there's no point in blaming the system. You know, you need to change your approach so that the things are changing. You're saying he's had a cardiac arrest ×2, right? Also, like I mentioned before, does he have an advanced care plan? Does he have an advanced care plan? Is there a legal document, a living will somewhere that says what he wants in a situation like that? Right? So the problem, Leslie, here is that if he's been in bed for 5 months, no physical therapy, he's going to end up with pressure sores, which potentially will end up killing him because he ends up with a sepsis, you know, with a bone marrow infection, bloodstream infection. Right. You know, and that'll kill him. He's probably also getting contracted. His joints are contracting. You're saying, I move his arms, he does nothing, no proxy. Sure. But, you know, when you're not there, there should be other people moving his arms. He should be getting out of bed. If someone doesn't have any fractures, is otherwise stable, it should not stop them from getting him out of bed and mobilizing him and doing physical therapy. Right. He has those already. Yeah, I'm not surprised. I am not surprised. I am not surprised at all. You know, they do move him time, a chair every other day. Okay, that's something. Okay, good. That's something. Okay. Have you considered taking him home? And I know that might be a loaded question. You know, you might think, no, it's not possible. But I'm just curious. Have you considered taking him home? I don't know where you are, where your location is. You know, he might be better off at home with the right support. You know, I was told being an event he cannot come home. No, that's nonsense. No, that's nonsense. You can go home with a ventilator and tracheostomy. So we do that. I'm not sure whether you've watched the beginning of the show. You can go home. I'll just with a service like this. You know, I'll just quickly send you a link here, Leslie. I'll just send you a link here. Intensive care at home. You know, we take people home all the time on ventilation with tracheostomy. No reason why they can't go home with a ventilator and a tracheostomy. Absolutely possible. Right? Whereabouts are you? Where is your location, Leslie? Yeah, he needs round-the-clock care. Sure. But he does have that anyway. He has around-the-clock care anyway. So whether you do it at home or in a facility, where would he be better off? At home or in a facility? In Manhattan, in New York. Okay. We might be able to help you privately in Manhattan. Leslie, when we when I stop this, either send me an email here with more information, or call me on this number, and then we can discuss options for your brother. So either email me there. So just send you an email. No, just send you a message here. Either email me with more information, or call me on 415-915-0090. Okay, Leslie, let me know if you have any other questions now. If not, the next steps we should be able to take offline. Okay, so now let's move on to the next question. Coming from Kat. Kat says, my dad was admitted to ICU and intubated 10 days ago for influenza A with COPD and emphysema. We were told they would wean him off sedation on day 4, but then we were told he wasn't ready. The emergency doctor said he was about 20% lung function. They are now saying that tracheostomy is the next step, but have not tried to wean off sedation or ventilation. Being trapped in an ICU on ventilation to die is his biggest fear, as he saw both of his parents pass away that way. Looking for options to get him a better quality of life if he cannot come off the ventilator. I want to be his strongest advocate in receiving the care and treatment he needs, both medically and mentally. Wow, what a challenging situation, Kat. If it's accurate that he has 20% lung capacity or lung function, it'll be very difficult to get him off the ventilator with COPD and emphysema and influenza A. So the other question that I have here, Kat, is, would he qualify for a lung transplant? Also, but they have not tried to wean him off. We were told he wasn't ready. He will probably struggle with 20% lung function to get off the ventilator, if that's true. I don't know if it's true or not. And again, that's why it's so important to get a second opinion, right? A tracheostomy might be the right next step. And then you might need to look at intensive care at home once again. You might need to do that. Being trapped in an ICU on ventilation to die is his biggest fear, as he saw both of his parents pass away that way. Kat, again, if God forbid he was going to pass away, why not intensive care at home? We provide palliative care with intensive care at home as well. So go and check out intensivecareathome.com for more information there. The other question that I have is, what happens if they wean the sedation and the opiates? Is he getting agitated? Can he wake up nicely? Does he need ECMO to help the lungs recover? How old is your dad? Those are all critical questions here. If it's accurate that he has 20% lung function, it is likely that he will need a tracheostomy, very likely. But you should give us access to the medical records for a second opinion. We should look at blood results. We should look at CT scans of the lungs. We should look at chest x-rays of the lungs. We should look at arterial blood gases, look at the bigger picture. And let's just say it is only day 4. A tracheostomy shouldn't be done before day 10 anyway. So I think you're going way too fast here. Going way too fast. I would just wait for now. Give him another couple of days. Don't let them get away with doing a tracheostomy straight away without, don't let them get away without giving you access to medical records. Keep asking the right questions and keep putting on the pressure. And once again, take full responsibility for what is happening. Take full responsibility. If you keep making, accusations, or, you need to take responsibility for what's happening, and nobody else. Nobody else but you. I will be back on camera in a minute, but I do need to change my position, and I will be back on camera in a minute. Okay, I'll just keep talking in the meantime. So, have you asked for ECMO? Do you know that ECMO is even an option? It's really important that you do your research. Very, very important. Okay, so now let's move on to the next question. Next question is from next question is again from Deborah. Says, "Hi Patrik, I do recommend your services as a friend. Son is doing very poorly and he went from ICU to rehab where he choked and wasn't breathing and now is in a coma, I believe, in a long-term care place. I feel they could be doing so much better for him, but she has not returned my text about your services. I so wish she would have talked to you. Her name is Virginia and she's the head of Lost Voices of Fentanyl, trying to get help for our kids dying of the fentanyl crisis. Her son's condition had nothing to do with drugs." Sure. Look, thank you, Deborah, for trying to refer your friend. The reality is we can help families, as you can see, as you well know. And once again, it's a case of taking full responsibility for what is happening. It really comes down to that. Right? Now, let's move on to the next question. Anita says, "What if they go from medical ICU to a general ICU and they say it's nothing wrong, it's just she's been in this unit for 120 days, so they're sending them back to a general ICU. What are they really doing?" That's a great question, Anita. It could be as simple as there are bed blocks. There could be a shift in priorities, right? It could be as simple as that they need to shift beds around. There may be nothing sinister in there. There may not be anything sinister in there. It could be just, they might need more medical beds for whatever reason. And I argue there's nothing sinister in there, unless there is more context to it that you are not sharing here. Just been in the unit for 120 days. Yeah. Look, it doesn't sound to me like they're changing approach in terms of, whether it's a medical ICU or a general ICU. It's still an ICU, as long as your mom is getting what she wants, because I know, Anita, you've got your mom in ICU. I wouldn't read too much into this particular issue. I wouldn't. Okay, next question from Nick. Nick says, "Hi Patrik, I had an anoxic brain injury about 9 years ago. I got a lot better. Then I got COVID. When COVID came around, and I got so much worse. I still get weird at night time. This is not a psychological issue. This has happened since my injury occurred. It has gotten worse over time." Well, this is really great to hear, Nick. and thank you so much for sharing that you got better after an anoxic brain injury. I mean, how many families, do we have here, who have loved ones in intensive care or a nursing home with anoxic brain injuries that don't know what to do, and it took you 9 years to get better. So thank you for sharing that and putting out hope. Then here's another email from Mark who says, "Hi Patrick, 10 years after an unattended heart attack, no oxygen for 20 to 30 minutes. I could not articulate nor remember anyone's names, including my family. I didn't think I would make it through to this, but I did, and I am so much better now." This is from Mark. Well, again, thank you, Mark, for sharing that with us, because this is, incredible. Again, we have Leslie here who said a minute ago, her brother is in a nursing home with an anoxic brain injury and is in a vegetative state. Well, and here we go. We've just heard from 2 anoxic brain injury survivors saying they all got better. And they're now writing emails, and if they're writing emails, so that means, they are better. So do not give up hope. Do not give up hope. Now, also, if you have any questions, just type them into the chat pad or get live on the show here. And you can get live on the show here by joining me by clicking on the StreamYard link that I'm just posting in there. Okay, you can join me live on the show here, or type your questions into the chat pad. In the meantime, I will read out the next question from Ella. Ella says, "Hi Patrick, does a tracheostomy affect the brain?" Great question. And no, it doesn't. So why doesn't a tracheostomy affect the brain? So the reason someone needs a tracheostomy is often the inability to wean off the ventilator. Okay, so, or if they can wean off a ventilator, but they still have an unstable airway, i.e. they can't swallow, they can't cough, then a tracheostomy might be needed as well. The way a tracheostomy does affect the brain is that most patients that have a breathing tube in their mouth need to be sedated and in an induced coma. Now, one of the main reasons to do a tracheostomy is simply to eliminate the need for sedation and for opiates. Now, once a tracheostomy has been done, sedatives and opiates can cease. Okay? And because sedatives and opiates can cease, the neurology of your loved one is going to change, i.e. they're going to wake up. They're more likely to wake up, much more likely as a matter of fact. So, therefore, a tracheostomy affects the brain indirectly by eliminating the need for sedation. Okay? So, really, it's about that. It's about eliminating the need for sedation. That's how a tracheostomy affects the brain. But a tracheostomy as such does not affect the brain. If anything, it should improve the brain. Okay, I hope that answers your question. Let's get on to the next question. From Ash. Ash says, "My father is complaining about his care in long-term ICU." Yeah, no surprises there that your dad is complaining about care in long-term ICU. Well, the answer to improve that situation is really with intensive care at home. Very simple. Very simple to improve the care for your father in long-term ICU by using intensive care at home instead. So I recommend you check out intensivecareathome.com as a next step. However, let me quickly explain what intensive care at home is. Similar to your dad, Ash, there are many patients in ICU who are there long term. If someone is long term in ICU, most of the time, 9 times out of 10, they need a tracheostomy and mechanical ventilation most of the time. Sometimes they need BiPAP, some inotropes, dialysis, TPN, but most of the times they need long-term ventilation and tracheostomy. And if that is the case, they experience a very poor quality of life. They experience depression, despair, frustration, and simply no quality of life. And it's the same for families. I'm sure that's what you are experiencing at the moment, Ash. And the answer to this is intensive care at home. Most of our intensive care at home clients that are at home on ventilation, tracheostomy, BiPAP, CPAP, sometimes tracheostomy, no ventilation, sometimes home TPN, and so forth. And sometimes palliative care as well, end-of-life care, right? They were stuck in ICU for months on end. Okay, so in that respect, intensive care at home is the solution here for your dad. How does it work? Well, with intensive care at home, we're sending critical care nurses into the home instead of, your dad having critical care nurses in ICU. Okay. So, and who's going to pay for it? Well, someone's going to pay for it because someone is paying for an ICU bed. Someone's paying $5,000 to $6,000 per bed day for an ICU bed. Would they be interested in paying half of that if you can have that at home and instead of in intensive care? Like I said in the beginning of the show, with intensive care at home, currently we are operating all around Australia in all rural and regional areas, but we're also in the US and in the UK privately, so you can contact us if you need it in the US or in the UK, you can contact us privately. In Australia, we are NDIS, an NDIS approved service provider. We are a TAC approved service provider in Victoria, and iCare approved service provider in New South Wales, and IISQ in Queensland, DVA around the country. Also, private health insurance, departments of health and public hospitals have funded our service too. So there's definitely a way forward for your dad, right? Also keep in mind, from an ICU perspective, they want the ICU bed, right? There's such a high demand on ICU beds. So by your dad going home with intensive care at home, he, is helping the intensive care unit to free up a bed that'll probably be occupied by a new patient in no time. So, it's not even here or there. It'll be occupied, the ICU bed will be occupied in no time, right? And if you go to intensivecarehome.com, have a look at our case studies, have a look at our testimonial section, that's the way forward here for your dad. Okay. Because the quality of life for your dad at home will be so much better. Okay, let's get on to the next question. From Manda. Manda says, ICU says, hi Patrick, ICU says my mom can't breathe on her own, but she's sitting up and takes her own breaths, but they say it's not enough. Okay. Manda, that's a great question. And my question to you is, does she have a breathing tube or does she have a tracheostomy? Right? That's a really important question here. Does she have a breathing tube or does she have a tracheostomy? Really important question. You know, because if she has a breathing tube and they stop sedation and they stop opiates, you know, she should be strong enough to breathe up, or she is more likely to be strong enough to breathe up, especially if she's getting mobilized, right? If she's having a tracheostomy already and she's sitting up, getting out of bed, and they're saying it's not enough yet, okay, how can she move to that it will be enough? You know, is it physical therapy? Is it breathing exercises? Is it a better day and night rhythm? Is she still on any sedatives? What else might be holding her back? Is she having seizures? Is she having a heart condition? You know, is she still on dialysis, for example, if she's in kidney failure? You know, again, the biggest challenge for families in intensive care is simply that they don't know what they don't know. They don't know what to look for. They don't know what questions to ask. They don't know their rights, and they don't know how to manage doctors and nurses in intensive care. That is exactly what you are dealing with here. Right? So, but your it's your mom, actually, not your dad. Your mom's way forward here is, you know, stop sedation, stop opiates if she's on a breathing tube, and if she's having a trach, you know, mobilization, breathing exercises, coughing exercises, physical therapy, and mobilization. You know, that's what's going to help. Okay. Next question. And again, if God forbid she can't come off the ventilator, just Amanda, if God forbid she can't come off a ventilator, can she go home? She might be so much better, or she probably is so much better off at home with weaning. If she gets intensive care at home, she'll be so much better off. Check out intensivecareathome.com for more information. Now, then here's an email from Brianna who says, "Hi Patrick, I'm here with my mum now in ICU. And she's no longer on a ventilator, only receiving oxygen through the tracheostomy, and she's been regulating her blood pressure on her own. She's no longer labeled critical condition. She's being transported to the third floor of the building of the hospital. That part of the hospital is called telemetry, but she'll be in section B, whatever that means. She will be monitored every 4 hours there. And I've just spoken to Mum's new caseworker. Mum's going to be evaluated sometime soon and deemed stable for outpatient care. Since her medical at LA Care, they're looking for LA facilities, Los Angeles facilities. But since no facilities accepting Mum locally, she was accepted to be transferred to San Pedro to a skilled nursing placement. The reason why Mum can't qualify for a rehabilitation facility is because she has to be able to do 3 hours of standing physical therapy, or at least be able to sit up on her own. Since she cannot do any of that, she will only qualify for anything other than 24-hour care. I'm planning on going to insurance and switching her to IE Medical so we can look at closer facilities for us, but that could take a month or two depending on how fast the insurance works on the switch. What are your thoughts? I really appreciate your help." Yeah, look, Brianna, I do know about your mom's situation because we've spoken about her before. You are one of our clients, and you know, she may no longer be labeled critical, but you know, that's a good thing on the one hand. On the other hand, you know, in order to move her forward, once again, when we last spoke, she wasn't mobilized. You know, she didn't have physical therapy, and that is what holds most people back to move forward. That is what holds most people back, and families don't even realize it, and they just buy into whatever the intensive care team is telling them. They just buy into it. They just, you know, believe this whole nonsense and they say, oh, we can't mobilize your loved one because they're not waking up, they haven't woken up, they're not doing anything. Well, they're not going to do anything if you're not mobilizing them to begin with. Do you remember a minute ago when I read out to you that 2 former ICU patients with a hypoxic brain injury came back to consciousness, now writing emails here? That didn't happen by letting them wither away in bed for months or weeks or years on end. That only happened because someone was proactive and helped them getting better, getting out of bed, right? That's how that came about. You know, as a family in a situation like that, you can never take no for an answer. Never, ever. Right? If you give in, you've already lost. You know? So yes, your mom cannot stand for 3 hours of standing physical therapy yet, but she'll only get there if they take the first step. It's not going to happen by letting her wither away in bed. You can't stand her up if she's not sitting at least in a chair. That's not rocket science. You can't run a marathon unless you are starting with the first step, with the training. It's not going to happen otherwise. Okay, so let's wrap this up for today. Thank you so much for watching, even if you're watching this on replay. Thank you for joining. Thank you for your questions. Thank you for your support. Now, if you have a loved one in intensive care, we have a membership for families of critically ill patients in intensive care, where we answer your questions 24 hours a day in the membership area and via email. And you get access to our membership at intensivecarehotline.com when you click on the membership link, or by going to intensivecaresupport.org directly. Once again, in the membership, you have access to me 24 hours a day in the membership area and via email, and we answer all questions intensive care related. I also offer one-on-one consulting and advocacy over the phone, Skype, Zoom, WhatsApp, whichever medium works best for you. And I talk to doctors and nurses directly, and I ask all the questions you haven't even considered asking. But you must ask when you have a loved one in intensive care, so that you can make informed decisions, have peace of mind, control, power, and influence, so that you're not in a situation like Deborah was, who sent an email earlier, where she lost her daughter because she didn't know how to advocate. She didn't know what to ask. You can't afford this. This is a once-in-a-lifetime situation that you can't afford getting wrong. Okay. I also represent you in family meetings with intensive care teams so that you don't get walked all over. I help you strategize. I lay out the strategy with you to go into a family meeting. And I also, decide with you whether you should even go into a family meeting with intensive care teams. Yes, that is an option also. Most families don't even know that. Something you must consider in a situation like this. I have worked in intensive care and critical care for over 20 years in 3 different countries. I've worked as a nurse manager for over 5 years. I've been consulting and advocating for families in intensive care for over 10 years. Once again, have a look at our testimonial section. Have a look at our podcast section where we have client interviews. We have saved lives without any exaggeration, We also offer medical record reviews in real time. Have a look at, contact us at intensivecarehotline.com if you need a medical record review in real time for a second opinion. We also offer medical record review at after intensive care. If you have unanswered questions, if you need closure, if you're suspecting medical negligence, please reach out to us. And if you need intensive care at home, go to intensivecareathome.com for more information there. Now, thank you so much for watching. If you like my videos, subscribe to my YouTube channel, click the like button, click the notification bell, share the video with your friends and families, comment below what questions and insights you have, what you want to see next. Thank you so much for watching. This is Patrik Hutzel from intensivecarehotline.com and intensivecareathome.com, and I will talk to you in a few days. Take care for now.